Was it hard for me to adjust to American culture? Do we have stores like Walmart in Germany? How does Germany handle the pandemic? And how does college life compare? Happy New Year, everyone! Frohes neues Jahr, and of course, hallo, servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Felicia. I'm originally from Munich, Germany, but have been living in Cincinnati, Ohio since 2016. For today's video, I told students who learn German at the University of Cincinnati to ask me anything. And of course, they didn't disappoint and asked me lots of questions that they had for me personally and for Germans in general, so here are my answers. The first question is, what was the hardest part about adjusting to the culture in the United States? That's a good question because going abroad definitely isn't always easy, and I would be lying if I said that I wasn't really scared and nervous before I first came here, but then once I was here, I didn't actually struggle all that much, to be honest, so I was very lucky with that. You'll often hear the term culture shock in this context, and there are usually different stages like the honeymoon phase or the frustration phase that people go through when moving to a new culture, but I personally didn't really experience that, which I think had a lot to do with the amazing people that I had around me. So adjusting to the culture in the US for me was mostly just getting used to little things that are different here, like small talk or learning how to do everyday things here. And I mostly learned those things by observing and asking lots and lots of questions. The only two things that come to my mind that were a little harder to adjust to were things that I experienced after a year or two, so after living here for a while. One thing was that I realized that maintaining friendships was a lot more difficult here than it was in Germany, at least in my generation. In Germany, in my experience, once you're good friends with someone, you usually don't have to do a whole lot to keep it that way. Friends are usually very loyal and reliable, but here I've noticed that it's a lot more common that friends come and go very quickly, and it's a lot harder to maintain those long-term friendships that I knew from Germany. And another thing that also really bugged me after a while was that it was really hard for me to get around. This might sound a little weird at first, but I was used to being very independent in Germany and could go where and whenever I wanted to, but here people would tell me all the time that I couldn't walk through certain areas of the city, or that even in the safe parts I couldn't walk by myself when it's dark. Like one time my friends almost forced me to get a ride from campus to my house, which was a 5-minute walk through a safe area at 9 p.m. in the wintertime just because it was dark out. Which I just thought was so ridiculous because it was really just a 5-minute walk and I walked that all the time. So all those safety concerns weren't really something that I was used to from Germany, where I would literally take public transportation or my bike or even walk home in the middle of the night all by myself all the time. The reason for this is that, just like most American cities, Cincinnati has a pretty high crime rate and shootings happen here all the time. On top of that, public transportation is very poor here compared to European standards, and I didn't have a car at first, so I was always dependent on other people to drive me, so it kind of felt like I was experiencing a loss of independence in a way compared to what I was used to in Germany. The next question comes from Victoria, and she wants to know, what is shopping like in Germany versus the US? Is it all local stores or do you have Walmart type stores? Malls? Question mark. So I definitely say that overall we do have more local stores in Germany than what you see in the US, but the trend has gone more towards huge chains in Germany as well, and many small businesses and local stores have been replaced by chain stores. We don't really have stores like Walmart in Germany. In fact, Walmart actually tried to enter the German market and opened up the first stores in Germany in 1997, but the concept didn't really work in Germany, so they ended up losing about 3 billion euros in total until they closed their stores again in 2006. There are only a couple stores that are somewhat comparable to Walmart, like Real or Kaufland, but overall Germans seem to prefer having different stores for different purposes, and many of us prefer smaller stores too. When it comes to food, groceries are actually a lot cheaper in Germany than they are in the US, and even with those low prices, we still have a pretty big variety of discounter stores like Aldi or Lidl, so that's also very different than it is in the US. And when it comes to shopping for clothes and other things, yes, we do have malls in Germany. Einkaufszentrum is the German word for that, and I'd say that they're pretty much the same as American malls. However, unlike in many US cities, where malls are pretty much the only place you go to go shopping, most German cities and towns also have a big shopping area in the city center, often with a pedestrian area. The next question is, can you talk a little bit about how you learned English? You sound so American. Do you think that is because you have been living here for a while now? So I started learning English in 5th grade in school. It's mandatory at German schools, and I had English all the way through 12th grade. So that's how I initially learned it. Then I also went on a 2-week high school exchange in the US and a 1-week exchange in England in 9th and 10th grade. And when I was around 17, I kind of started watching a couple American shows in English, like How I Met Your Mother or Gossip Girl, so that kind of helped too. The accent thing, I think, just comes from living here, and it's also kind of a talent. Some people just pick up languages and accents better than others, and I think I was just lucky that I have a talent for that in a way. Someone else also said, your English is perfect. Do you have any tips for learning languages? Well, thank you first of all. My tips are definitely, first of all, to take classes in some way. Can be in person, can be online, but you definitely need some kind of formal instruction to learn the basics and the grammar. And then definitely speak it and practice it as much as you can. Whether that's with classmates, native speakers, friends who know the language, or you can also just talk to yourself and imitate whole conversations. And my last tip would be to try and consume media in the language. So movies and shows, you can always turn on the subtitles too, and you can even start listening to music in that language. And even if you feel like you don't understand a single word in the beginning, trust me, it'll still help you get a feeling for the language, and you'll see over time you'll start to understand more and more. The next question is from Miranda, and she writes, many Cincinnatians like to talk about how German our city is. As a German living in Cincinnati, do you find this to be true? Yes, that's definitely something that I hear a lot. And for those of you who don't know anything about Cincinnati, the city has a huge German heritage. Many people here have a German last name, so the city definitely is very German in a historical context. But looking at it in modern times, as a German citizen coming here in the 21st century, I have to say that to me personally, the city itself is actually very Midwestern, or what I would consider typically American, with the downtown area with all the skyscrapers, the huge streets, all the space, and that everything is so spread out, the long distances, the type of buildings you see, the streets that look like a grid, the lack of public transportation, and so on. I mean, of course, there's lots of architecture that was originally built by German immigrants in the 19th century, but many of those buildings weren't what people actually lived in Germany at the time, so it doesn't really remind me of home. At the same time, there are many German-style restaurants here, lots of German organizations, German programs at school. Many German speakers are in Cincinnati too. There are German-style festivals, and that's always fun for me to go to, but many of these things are kind of like a festival with a very stereotypical Germany theme to them. Or sometimes they're trying to keep up very old German traditions, which is great, but it's more like an imitation of what it might have been like 100 years ago and doesn't really feel like Germany nowadays. So there is German history here in Cincinnati, but the city doesn't remind me of a German city or of what it's like to live in Germany today. What are some German YouTubers that you would recommend following? So I personally don't really watch a lot of those typical YouTubers, so I don't have any recommendations in that regard, but I do like to watch more educational channels like Mr. Wissen to Go is from Germany, or MyLab, or documentary channels like Die Frage or Y-Kollektiv that are part of the public broadcasting in Germany. I also watch videos by the German YouTuber Rezo sometimes. He has some very educational videos as well, and I've recently watched the YouTuber duo Jay and Aria a lot. They make English-speaking short films, among other things, and have just recently released a very successful short film called Among Us that I can recommend. It's based on the online game, if you know that. Besides that, there's also lots of YouTube channels for learning German, like Easy German or Get Germanized, and many others. Have you been to Germany since the pandemic started? How would you compare the experience to the US? No, I actually haven't been to Germany since then. Last time I was there was for Christmas, so it's almost been a year, but I still know what it's like since I still consume German news and obviously talk to my friends and family a lot. I don't want to go too much into detail because there are so many restrictions that have been implemented and lifted throughout the year, so many protests and discussions, but overall there are many things that are similar to the experience here. Like, lots of regulations are decided by the different states in Germany rather than the federal government. Just like here, here, we have 16 states in Germany called Bundesländer. But compared to my experience in Ohio, things are stricter in Germany overall. Like the restrictions are enforced a lot more, and there are pretty high fines when you break the rules, like up to several thousand euros sometimes. There are also pretty strict contact restrictions. Like currently, for example, you can't meet up with more than one other household, and it can only be a maximum of 5 people at a time, in public as well as in private. Here in Ohio, there are things like a mask mandate and there's a curfew in place right now, but I personally haven't really seen these things being enforced a lot. Another difference is that, unlike in the US, the situation in Germany relaxed quite a bit at the beginning of summer, so many Germans were able to enjoy the summer a little, while here in Ohio, the restrictions were never fully lifted. Like restaurants have been closing at 10 p.m. for months now, and many people never even went back into the office, so that was a little different for sure. What are your favorite cities in the US and in Germany? That's a difficult question, but I would say that one of my favorite cities in the US is Chicago, and in Germany it's probably Munich, my hometown, and Hamburg. The next question is from Victoria, and she asks, what are schools and universities like? Example, in France you have to take the BAC to graduate high school, and it's out of only 20 points. So it's actually similar in Germany. We have 3 different types of secondary schools: Hauptschule, Realschule, and Gymnasium. They end after 9th, 10th, and after 12th or 13th grade. Depends on the state within Germany. And at the highest school, so Gymnasium, you take a similar exam to the BAC in France that you mentioned. It's called Abitur in Germany, and it consists of many exams, both written and oral exams, in 5 different subjects that, together with your grades from the last 2 years, make your final grade that is relevant for graduating high school and for getting into universities. You said it's out of 20 points in France. I mean, that's just the grade system. In Germany, it's usually out of 15 points, but the final grade on your diploma will be displayed in regular school grades, which in Germany is 1, which equals A, to 6, which is an F. And only with the Abitur diploma, you can study at a university afterwards. And there was a related question to this: how do German and American university culture compare, especially parties and social life? So I made a whole video about this topic actually that you can check out on my channel, and it's a pretty big topic, but I'm going to try and summarize it. It's definitely very different, and I'd say that one of the main differences is that at German universities, we don't really have any kind of campus life or college sports. Like there's no on-campus housing, not a lot of student organizations. You typically just go to class, maybe the cafeteria, and then the library, and then you go back home. And before you say that that sounds kind of boring, you should consider that most German universities are pretty much free. You only pay a couple €100 each semester for fees, but there's no actual tuition. So obviously, they don't have money to provide all these things. When it comes to parties, that's a thing that German students don't have to wait until college for, like in the US. We're legally allowed to drink beer and wine at the age of 16 and hard liquor at 18, and people usually start partying during high school. And by that, I don't mean secret parties when someone's parents aren't home, but like openly going to bars and clubs, etc. So parties and going out obviously continues throughout college, but it's not this huge new thing like it is for many Americans going to college. Greek life also isn't really a thing at German universities. I mean, there are some fraternities and sororities at German universities, but they're pretty small. They don't really play a big role in everyday university life, and many of them are actually very traditional and kind of outdated. The last question is, will there be Christmas markets in Germany this year? Not really, unfortunately. In some cities, they made plans to just spread them out more to leave more space between the different booths. But in Munich, where I'm from, they just announced harder restrictions that prohibit drinking alcohol in public. And since one of the main things at German Christmas markets is the Glühwein, the mulled wine, it doesn't really seem like they're going to happen at all in Munich now. I've heard that some places are hosting drive-in Christmas markets though, so maybe I can check one of those out when I'm home for Christmas. But I really hope that they can take place next year again, because they're one of my favorite things on Christmas. And that was the last question for today. This Q&A session was originally made as part of the Campus Weeks 2020 Building Tomorrow by the German Embassy in Washington, D.C. So shout out to them. I'm glad I could be a part of this. And as you might have noticed, this was recorded back in December, before Christmas, and also before I went home to Germany for the holidays. So my answer about not having been to Germany since the pandemic started doesn't hold true anymore. I'm currently in Germany and we're in a lockdown right now, so pretty much everything is closed except for essential stores, and there's also contact restrictions and a curfew. So just a few additions on that topic. I hope you guys liked this video and found my answers helpful. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and of course subscribe to my channel for free. And if you'd like to attend a live Q&A session every single month, you can become a patron of this channel on patreon.com/. Of course, you can also find me on Instagram at with underscores and on Facebook. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time. Tschüss!